Picture this, it's dawn on May 27th, 2015. At the five-star Bar au Lac Hotel in Zurich, Switzerland, Swiss police storm through the lobby. They're not there for a robbery. They're there for soccer officials. 7 men in expensive suits are arrested and hauled out in front of the world's media just 2 days before FIFA's big presidential election. These aren't street criminals. They're the most powerful men in the world's most popular sport. But here's the kicker. This wasn't even close to being the full story. What investigators would uncover was a corruption machine so sophisticated, so brazen, and so deeply embedded that it made the mafia look like amateurs. We're talking about a 24-year scheme involving over $150 million in bribes, fake companies, offshore accounts, and a culture where buying votes was literally just business as usual. And the wildest part, the man who helped bring it all down was one of the most corrupt officials of them all, a 300-pound American who owned 2 apartments in Trump Tower, one for him, one for his cats. I'm not making this up. This is the story of how FIFA, the organization that runs the world's beautiful game, became one of the most corrupt organizations on the planet. Let's start with some context. FIFA, the Fédération Internationale de Football Association, isn't just some sports league. By 2014, it had 211 member nations. That's more than the United Nations, which only has 193. Think about that for a second. FIFA literally had more members than the organization designed to unite the entire world. And the money? Oh, the money was absolutely staggering. Between 2011 and 2014, FIFA pulled in $5.7 billion in revenue. 70% of that, $4 billion, came from just one event, the World Cup. Specifically from selling TV broadcasting and marketing rights. FIFA's balance sheet in 2015 showed nearly $3 billion in assets. But here's where it gets interesting. FIFA was registered as a non-profit organization under Swiss law. A non-profit. Despite raking in billions, FIFA paid only $75 million in taxes between 2011 and 2014. To put that in perspective, FIFA's 2014 income alone was over $2 billion. Now, you might think, okay, maybe they're reinvesting that money into soccer development, youth programs, stuff like that. And yes, they did some of that, but a hell of a lot of it went into the pockets of corrupt officials through an elaborate system of bribes, kickbacks, and schemes that would make a mafia don jealous. The structure of FIFA made corruption almost inevitable. You had a FIFA Congress with representatives from 211 countries, basically a legislative branch, an executive committee that made the real decisions, and one president at the top. For 17 years, that president was a Swiss man named Sepp Blatter. But before we get to Blatter, we need to talk about the man who nearly destroyed FIFA from within while also exposing it, Chuck Blazer, aka Mr. 10%. Charles Gordon Blazer was born in New York City in 1945 and raised in the borough of Queens. He wasn't an athlete, he was a businessman who loved soccer and had a talent for making money. By 1990, he convinced Jack Warner, a powerful soccer official from Trinidad and Tobago, to run for president of CONCACAF, the organization that governs soccer in North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. Warner won and immediately appointed Blazer as general secretary. When Blazer took over, CONCACAF, I don't actually know if I'm saying that right, had about $140,000 in annual revenue, about a good paying job. But by the time he left in 2011, it was pulling in over $40 million a year. Blazer was genuinely good at this, expanding TV rights, growing tournaments like the Gold Cup. But he was also stealing massive amounts of money. Here's how corrupt Chuck Blazer was. For over a decade, he didn't file personal income taxes, not once. He accumulated $11 million in unreported income. He had 2 apartments at Trump Tower in New York, one $18,000 a month place for himself, and a $6,000 a month apartment just for his cats. Yes, apparently his cats deserve their own apartment in Trump Tower. When you're embezzling millions from soccer, your cats deserve luxury, I guess. A 2013 forensic audit found that Blazer had received $15 million in commissions during his time at CONCACAF, much of it completely unauthorized. The audit revealed he and Jack Warner had operated without written contracts from 1998 until they left, which is, let's just say, not normal for organizations handling tens of millions of dollars. But in 2011, Blazer's life caught up with him. One November evening, 2 men stopped him on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan while he was riding his mobility scooter. They were from the FBI and the IRS. They knew about the unpaid taxes. They knew about the shell companies. They gave Blazer a choice: help us or go to prison. Blazer folded immediately, and what happened next was something straight out of a spy thriller. Chuck Blazer became an FBI informant. The government outfitted him with a wire. During the 2012 London Olympics, Blazer carried a recording device hidden in a keychain, like James Bond, except if Bond weighed 300 pounds and needed a mobility scooter. But he was recording fellow soccer executives talking about bribes. He attended meeting after meeting, pretending everything was normal while secretly gathering evidence. In November 2013, Blazer pleaded guilty to 10 felony counts, including racketeering, wire fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion. But the public didn't know yet. The plea was sealed. Blazer continued cooperating, recording countless conversations. The evidence he gathered would become the foundation of one of the biggest corruption cases in sports history. Chuck Blazer died in 2017 from colorectal cancer at a New Jersey hospital, age 72, never having been sentenced. He spent his final years stripped of his wealth and banned from soccer for life. One former federal prosecutor described his absence from the eventual trials as one brick removed from the wall. It wouldn't make the whole case crumble, but it mattered. May 27, 2015, dawn breaks over Zurich. FIFA officials from around the world have gathered at the luxurious Bar Lac Hotel for the organization's annual Congress, where Sepp Blatter is expected to be re-elected for a fifth term as president. At 6 a.m., Swiss police, acting on a request from U.S. authorities, raid the hotel. They arrest 7 FIFA officials: Jeffrey Webb, CONCACAF president and FIFA vice president; Eduardo Lee, president of the Costa Rican Football Federation; Julio Roca, former FIFA development officer; Costas Takas, attaché to the CONCACAF president; Eugenio Figueiredo, FIFA vice president and former CONMEBOL president; Rafael Esquivel, Venezuelan Football Federation president; and Jose Maria Marin, former president of the Brazilian Football Confederation. That's a mouthful right there. The charges: racketeering, wire fraud, and money laundering. The scope: 24 years of systematic corruption. Later that same day in Brooklyn, New York, U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch holds a press conference announcing a 47-count, 164-page indictment. The document alleges that FIFA officials had solicited and received over $150 million in bribes and kickbacks from sports marketing executives in exchange for media and marketing rights to tournaments. She says, and I quote, "The indictment alleges corruption that is rampant, systemic, and deep-rooted both abroad and here in the United States. It spans at least 2 generations of soccer officials who, as alleged, have abused their position of trust to acquire millions of dollars in bribes and kickbacks." 2 generations. Let that sink in. This wasn't a few bad apples. This was institutional corruption passed down like a family business. FBI Director James Comey added that bribery and kickbacks had become a way of doing business at FIFA. 4 days later, on May 29th, Sepp Blatter wins re-election as FIFA president, defeating Prince Ali bin Hussein of Jordan 133-73. But the pressure is unbearable. On June 2nd, just 4 days after his victory, Blatter announces he will resign and call for new elections. The dam has broken. By December 2015, a superseding indictment brings the total number of individuals and entities charged to 41. Charges continue to pile up over the following years. More than 50 individuals and entities would eventually be charged. Dozens would plead guilty. The investigation drew in international law enforcement partners from across more than 20 countries. So, how exactly did this work? Let's break down some of the specific schemes. Scheme number 1, the South Africa bribe. This one's particularly insidious. In 2004, South Africa was bidding to host the 2010 World Cup, which would be the first World Cup ever held on the African continent. To secure votes from FIFA executives, $10 million was promised to officials including Chuck Blazer, Jack Warner, and others. But here's the brilliant evil twist. The $10 million didn't come from South Africa's own pocket in the way you'd expect. It was wired from a FIFA account in Switzerland, money tied to the funds meant to support the 2010 tournament and disguised as support for a diaspora legacy program for African communities in the Caribbean. So, FIFA officials essentially routed money through FIFA's own system to pay themselves for the right to host the event. The money flowed into bank accounts controlled by Jack Warner. The full $10 million moved through accounts he controlled, and $4.86 million of it ended up at JTA Supermarkets, a large grocery chain in Trinidad, paid in installments between 2008 and 2009. Additional sums went to pay off Warner's personal credit cards and loans. Blazer admitted in his guilty plea that he and 2 colleagues had agreed to accept $1 million each as their cut. Imagine being so corrupt, you're haggling over the size of your bribe. Scheme number 2, the Brazil sponsorship deal, the Nike allegation. Here's one that pulled a household name into the story carefully. The May 2015 indictment described an unnamed sportswear company A, which the Financial Times and Bloomberg identified as Nike, that signed a $160 million decade-long deal in 1996 to outfit the Brazilian national team. On top of that, the company agreed to pay an additional $40 million to an affiliate of Traffic, the sports marketing firm that brokered the deal, routed through a Swiss bank account. Prosecutors allege that roughly half of that $40 million was then transferred as kickbacks to a high-ranking Brazilian soccer official, Ricardo Teixeira. Now, and this is important, Nike was never charged with a crime. The Department of Justice did not allege that Nike or any of its employees knowingly participated in any bribery or kickback scheme. And the company says it opposes bribery and cooperated with authorities. The bribery as charged happened on the Traffic side of the payment. It's a reminder of how these schemes worked. Legitimate-looking marketing fees became a pipeline through which the dirty money flowed. Scheme number 3, broadcasting rights goldmine. Sports marketing companies would pay enormous bribes to FIFA officials for exclusive rights to broadcast tournaments. These companies would then sell those rights to TV networks at huge markups. One sports marketing executive, Jose Hawila, owner of Brazil's largest sports marketing company, Traffic, pleaded guilty and entered his companies into plea agreements in December 2014. The kickback system was so established that officials expected their cut as a matter of course. One detail from the indictment is particularly colorful. In one instance, a representative from a Bahamas-based bank flew to New York to physically pick up a $250,000 bribe check and carry it back to a defendant's account. They were literally hand-delivering bribes via international flights. Scheme number 4, Qatar 2022. The awarding of the 2022 World Cup to Qatar remains one of the most controversial decisions in FIFA history. Qatar is a tiny nation with a population of about 2 million people. Summer temperatures are over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and virtually no soccer history exists for them. It made no sense as a World Cup host, and that fueled years of suspicion. According to leaked documents and court filings, Mohammed bin Hammam, a Qatari billionaire and former FIFA executive, allegedly paid millions of dollars to officials in Africa and elsewhere to win goodwill and votes for Qatar. And then there's the broadcasting deal. In 2019, the Sunday Times reported that it had seen leaked documents showing Qatar's state-run broadcaster Al Jazeera signed a contract worth $400 million with FIFA, announced just 21 days before the 2022 host was chosen. That included a $100 million success fee payable only if Qatar won the bid. Al Jazeera was owned and controlled by Qatar's emir, who was the driving force behind the bid, which would make the payment a clear conflict with FIFA's own anti-bribery rules. The same reporting alleged a further $480 million was offered 3 years later, bringing the total to a staggering $880 million. A dozen or so FIFA officials involved in the 2022 selection process have since been banned or indicted. Even Sepp Blatter later called selecting Qatar a mistake, though he himself voted for it. Scheme number 5, Russia 2018. Russia's successful bid for the 2018 World Cup also raised eyebrows. A 2020 U.S. indictment accused Jack Warner of receiving $5 million in bribes to vote for Russia. The pattern was the same, enormous sums of money flowing to officials in exchange for votes. Here's the uncomfortable truth. A lot of people aren't sure FIFA really learned anything. Yes, there were reforms. Gianni Infantino was elected president in 2016, replacing Blatter. FIFA created a council to replace the old executive committee. They imposed term limits. They strengthened the ethics committees. Over $200 million in forfeited assets was eventually returned to FIFA and soccer federations as compensation. But critics argue the structural problems remain. In a 174-page report published in December 2024, the watchdog group Fair Square concluded that FIFA's much-touted 2016 reforms produced little to no improvement, and that in some areas, the organization actually regressed. On the 10th anniversary of the scandal in May 2025, Fair Square and a coalition of academics, whistleblowers, and supporters groups went even further, arguing that FIFA is arguably more poorly governed today than a decade ago. As of mid-2026, Fair Square had launched a new campaign, Reboot FIFA, pressing for external reform. FIFA, for its part, insists that it has transformed from a toxic organization into a respected and trusted global sports governing body. And consider this, despite all the corruption charges, Qatar still hosted the 2022 World Cup. Russia hosted it in 2018. Though tournaments went forward, the money kept flowing. Mike Gaeta, the FBI agent who directed the early years of the investigation, made a telling point. The goal was never to reform FIFA. U.S. authorities were going after criminals who used American banks and infrastructure to commit crimes. Cleaning up world soccer was never the mission. The organization has more power and money than ever, and as we speak, the 2026 World Cup, hosted across the United States, Canada, and Mexico, is underway, and it's the biggest ever. 48 teams instead of 32. More teams means more games, more TV rights, more sponsorships, more money. The temptations that created the scandal haven't gone anywhere. So, did the scandal change FIFA? Maybe around the edges, but the fundamental problem remains. When you put billions of dollars into an organization with limited oversight and officials from countries with varying levels of corruption tolerance, the temptation becomes almost irresistible. The FIFA corruption scandal remains one of the most extensive corruption cases in modern history. More than 50 people and entities charged across more than 20 countries, hundreds of millions of dollars in bribes, decades of systematic fraud, and at its center, the world's most popular sport beloved by billions. Chuck Blazer's transformation from corrupt official to FBI informant exposed a system that had operated in the shadows for decades. The arrests, the indictments, the guilty pleas that followed showed corruption wasn't an aberration at FIFA, it was the business model. The beautiful game has been sold to the highest bidder again and again. World Cup hosts were chosen amid allegations of bribes, not merit. Officials enriched themselves while claiming to serve soccer development. The money that should have built youth facilities and trained referees, it instead bought luxury apartments and paid off credit cards. Today, FIFA remains the most powerful organization in sports. The World Cup remains the most watched sporting event on earth. Billions of fans tune in, mostly unaware or unconcerned about the corruption that swirled behind the scenes. Because here's the thing about the beautiful game. We apparently love it too much to let corruption kill it. And perhaps that's exactly what FIFA's been counting on all along. The scandal exposed the rot. But whether anyone truly cleaned it out, that's still an open question.